After our vivid discussion concerning nouns as an expression of liberation theology, which most of us agreed that we can consider those who don't feel like being part of existent religious denominations or institutions. Nevertheless, the way how the people who distance themselves from existent religions are creating a new way of living spirituality or religiosity. And today, after 2 weeks, which I hope you passed fruitfully and peacefully, and also having time to read the list of books which I send you, together with the new topic, namely feminism as the expression of liberation theology. Perhaps for some of you, it will be quite surprising that it is at all possible to connect feminism with religion or even with theology. It seems to me that this combination between the new expression of women's emancipation is very much present also in a theological reflection, and not only in Christianity, but also in Judaism, in Islam, in other religions. But for clarity of our debate and of our discussion in class, and also of, this the first step into the topic, I limited myself only to Christianity, or even only to Catholicism, since they are not particularly important reasons for this choice, but for sake, as I said, of clarity, of focusing our attention on one confession, which is quite important and also representative for many Americans. Many means, I don't know now, 20-25% of American population are Catholics. So you will find on our campus 3 books of 3 distinguished authors. All 3 of them are important, and I would even say prominent theologians and also feminists, but all 3 are different. And this makes also studying the subject so exciting that you don't have just one model of being a feminist and theologian, but many. And you will see on the examples of these 3 women, whom I will present briefly. And I hope that you will find time to read one of these books, or even more. So first is the most also controversial and more interesting. She was the first who at all started this discourse of feminist theory, which, according to her, could be applied also to theology. Her name is Mary Daley. Mary Daley, she was born in 1928, passed away 2010, and she was a theologian, first of all, but with new books and development of her way of thinking, of her approaching theology, she became a a symbol of a radical feminist. And of course, we cannot spend too much time to study her, but I suggest to focus your attention on one of her book, which is not very thick, just 130 pages, more or less. And the title is Beyond God the Father, Toward a Philosophy of Women's Liberation. So already in the title, you see the most important purpose of Daley's theology. According to her, we have to deconstruct the masculine or patriarchal concept of God and of many notions which are present in Christian tradition. What is perhaps interesting and even paradoxical that entire life Mary Daley was linked to Catholic institution, Boston College, a very important university in Boston. And exactly there, she was teaching and publishing her most revolutionary books. And at the end of her career, she was fired. But it's interesting why, because she was not, she violated the law of Massachusetts state because she was unwilling to accept a student, male student, to her seminar. So, her radical way of thinking had also this uh, implications for some observers, commentators. It was controversial. For another hand, it was quite uh, linked to her theology, etc. So, reading her book, you will see how radical this theology was, so far that at the end of her life, she left actually Catholicism and even Christianity, because for her to be free, to be liberated, meant also to leave, to abandon institutional form, oppressive form of religion. So first, Mary Daley and her concept of beyond God, the Father. The second feminist theologian is Elizabeth Fiorenza Schuster, also author of many books, a little bit younger than Mary Daley. She was born 10 years later, 1938, and she's still alive, very active, prolific. And as I said, she was not so radical as Mary Daley, remained Catholic and write as a Catholic theologian. Nevertheless, in her book, of which I put on the platform just introduction and the first chapter, Bread and Not Stone, she offered a very radical approach to the Bible. And she encouraged her readers, us, if you will read, you will see it's really worth it to carefully read the introduction and also the first chapter, because you see very important consequences of applying feminist categories to the Bible, and also to, of course, church tradition and hermeneutic feminist, but also of suspicion. Means that what we uh, got from our fathers, parents, forefathers, etc., is not necessarily the only way to look at Catholicism or at Christianity. There are other possible ways. And exactly this hermeneutic of suspicion means that you don't accept without criticism what was transmitted to you, you will discover new perspectives, and they are really revolutionary for our understanding of religion. So you can, in case of Elizabeth Fiorenza Schuster, remain in the institution, in the Catholic Church, but from inside you can propose a new reading of the from basic texts of your tradition. So I hope that you will find it interesting, inspiring, and we will have also an interesting debate about this too. And the third representative of this feminist theology as liberation theology is Elizabeth, again, Elizabeth, this time Johnson, a few years younger than Fiorenza Schuster. Elizabeth Johnson was born in 1941. And what is interesting that she is nun. She's a member of religious order, and all her life she was a teacher, prolific author, as I said, wrote several books and gave lectures around the world. And she remained not only Catholic but even a nun. So for her, being a nun, being a Catholic, being a member of religious order is not a limit to express um, revolutionary, again, ideas concerning theology. There are many books. One of the last of her book was the subject of investigation of theologians, of bishops who suspected her of heresy, and because she proposed some new language to be used in the liturgy. But she was very courageous. For Polish standards, it's hardly to imagine that if a nun will be criticized by bishops, she will not only discuss with them, but she wrote a very long letter to this commission and said, actually, your objections toward my theology testify that you never read my books. So please read them, and after we will discuss who is right or not. As far as I know, she's still living and is very popular in Fordham University. She is teaching. Just as an example of her courageous theology, I put on the platform one of her perhaps best known book. She was She Who Is, the Mystery of God in Feminist Theological Discourse. So you see already in the title, as in the title of actually Mary Daley book, you have this enlargement of the concept of God, who not necessarily should be conceived or understood as male, but perhaps she is a woman, perhaps she is even black. So we can easily imagine how uh, playful and with imagination and with relax Elizabeth Johnson is treating Catholic tradition, and how uh, she's simply including feminism in her theological reflection. So all what I want to propose you for our debate on April 8 is to see feminism as an enrichment, as a really enlargement of theological discourse. And I think that this is really an emancipatory discourse, that women gain a new awareness, a new sensitivity. And not only women, actually, many men, thanks to feminism and to feministic approach to theology, became more aware of this feministic dimension of religious discourse. So I hope it will be helpful also for our debate on liberation theology.